Hey guys. Thanks for having me here. It's exciting to be in San Francisco and, of course, in Permind. Amazing facility. I've been fortunate enough to actually mix a track at one of their main studios the other day, and it just blew me. The sound is like amazing. So, want to just kind of keep this a bit interactive. So, any point in time you think that you want to ask me some questions about production or DJing or anything to do with music. Just to give a bit background of what I do, I've been a DJ for the last like 17 years or so. I've been producing for maybe 10, 12 years. I run a record label. I run a music school in India called ILM Academy. Yeah? Okay, awesome. Yeah, so we run a music school in India called I Love Music Academy. I have a management and booking agency as well in India that we run. So I kind of try and do like everything I can within the dance music scene to make it grow and develop it within India. I know it's a bit far fetched to think that there is a dance music scene there, but there is quite a flourishing dance music scene going on there, and I'm happy to have been a part of it for so many years. So I think to just start off with, considering this is more production and more techie kind of a seminar we're doing here, I'm presuming everybody knows Ableton and is familiar with it. And if you think I'm going a bit fast, or if you think that you're not understanding anything, please feel free to just like stop me and just ask any questions. So the first track that I'm going to show you guys, and I'm going to try and basically break down two tracks that I've done. One of them is probably my biggest track one of the biggest tracks I've had so far. It's a track called Terrakoz. Um, it was played. I mean, it was released maybe early last year, and since then it's been played by practically every big known DJ on the planet. Sorry, this is my like live machine, and it doesn't have everything on it. So right. Right. So this track was the thought process behind this track, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play the track out first so that you can just get um, hear it in its entirety, and then we can kind of break it down. The whole thought process behind this track was I wanted to make something specifically for the dance floor, specifically for me to play out. The way I make music is I very rarely go into the studio with with a thought in my mind about what I want the song to sound like or the track to sound like. It's more about what what feeling I have or what emotion I have or what I've picked up from the night before or something that's inspired me, that I've been around, and I try and bring that into my tracks. It's very rarely going in with like a bass line in my head or like a groove in my head. I don't like to work like that anymore. It's more about, okay, I had a great night last night. I had an amazing gig. The crowd was digging this particular sound, or there was this certain moment of the night where I thought that, okay, you know what, I need to capture this particular moment. So for me, music today is made specifically to make a couple of moments. So this track in particular was more about this point in the night where you're just like, hands up in the air, and you're just like, jacking it, and it's a jacking dance floor techno tune. So I'm just gonna play the track first, and then we can kind of, and I won't play the entire thing, just like basic part of it. Okay. Right. So, I think the first thing that you would think listening to this track is it's really simple. It's very basic. There are not too many elements happening in it, and the for me, I think that the important thing about dance music is, or a really jacking track for a sound system on the that you need for the dance floor, is the track needs to be simple as much as possible. It needs to have a very strong groove that keeps it going. And I think the more complicated a track is on a big PA system, the more messed up it sounds because not all PA systems are built equally. At some clubs you'll have amazing function one systems. At another club you might have like a really crappy, like a really foddy sounding system. You need to be able to make music that sounds, good in both if that's the kind of music you're making. And so yeah, the thought behind this track was just something to make for the dance floor. This really, a peak time kind of like, hands up in the air, everybody just like raving kind of situation. And it pretty much did the job. Everybody who's played it so far just says it works. It's one of those tracks that you can just kind of drop when you want the dance floor to explode, and it's been working for me ever since. Um, the interesting thing about this track is also that if you notice, it's at 123 BPM. It's pretty low actually, but it still sounds, pretty forward. I think that's also because of the programming, the way the drums have been structured, and the way the bass line works with, the whole groove. And dance music in general, I think the most fundamental piece that you need to get right is the kick and the bass, the correlation between what the kick and the bass is like. So here again, you can see it's just like a simple kick drum, and the bass is from a Moog that's just recorded audio, actually, just straight audio. And I kind of got a little dubby kind of bass to kind of like just give it a little bit of body. I really like to do this actually, and I think it's a really cool trick. I don't know how many people really use it, but I often use two different bass sounds to make my bass line. I may play the bass on just one synth or one VST or whatever. But I'll often take some notes out and open another bass synth, and just take a slightly uh, different sounding bass sound. Like, generally most of my basses are all sine waves. I think they make the nicest subs. So you get this nice really low sub happening, and then you get something with like maybe a sawtooth, which is like slightly distorted or whatever. Again, not filter, not open too high. And you mix the two, and maybe you take out a few notes from one and add a few more notes to the other, and make both those sounds into one bass sound. So you get, this is like the simplest way to explain it. With this, it's just one note on this dubby bass that's happening, you know. And I think for this, I just use like a sample. It's just some dubby sample, which I just like this. It just gives it a little interesting kind of low end, and when you mix it with the actual bass, so you're hearing the sub come from the actual Moog bass, but that little top end is what gives it some body. I mean, you can put a lot into the bass frequencies, but it's always also good to keep them clear so that your subs in the club. I mean, end of the day, you're making music for the dance floor. You're making for a club, so it's nice to get the subs coming out of there. But it's also good to have some of the bass frequencies, sort of like upper mid bass kind of sound coming from the top end speakers that happen. And when you put it with a kick, it just sounds really. So when I work on a track, I like to play with a lot of. I like the track to have some atmospheres. Well, by atmosphere, I mean not just the regular stuff that you would find in a dance track, which is your kick, snare, hi hats, and stuff like that. It's a lot of background noises which give the track some body. Uh, and I love working on these kind of sounds because they're really interesting. I'm just gonna play you an example of what I'm actually talking about. Where is it? All right, it's called back. Yeah. So these sounds are basically just sounds in the background. They're not they're very back in the mix, and often I use really weird like samples to make these sounds. If you can see here, this. So this is obviously just part of another sample, which originally was. It was originally this sample, and I just liked the tone of it. It had these nice like lower mid frequencies, and as you can see here, it just comes up right here, which is an interesting frequency. If you don't have dance music with a lot of vocals and a lot of big heavy synths and stuff, you need to compensate, I feel, to kind of fill that gap within the sound. So it's just a little hit that's happening, and when you add it with your bass, so basically you're filling in the mid frequencies a bit as well. You're adding something interesting happening there, and you can take and you can do this as much as you want and kind of cover this entire spectrum range if you want. I mean, this is really especially good if you like I said, if you don't have big vocals in your tracks, and if you don't have these heavy synths. Like often this mid frequency space can feel a bit empty, so it's a good way to fill it up. And again, like I said, it's about keeping it simple, but it's about keeping it a little interesting. Dance music today can, people make them in like an hour. It's just add a bunch of drum loops and just put in some like stabs and just record some random vocals and put it in. But it's how do you make dance music interesting to the listener, to the system in the club, that it sounds a little more different to what everything else is, and also it kind of plays with your ear in a sense of it makes it interesting because your ear might have not heard these frequencies in a set. So you kind of, if you build a track with certain weird sounds that other people have not heard or might not use too much in their production, your track automatically kind of stands out between a whole set of music that you're listening to in a night. So I like to do this a lot actually. I'd use a lot of these like background weird noises. Again, now this, for example, this sample is just the beginning of just another random sample. I mean, so all I did was I just took this little bit, this little chunk right here, and just looped it, and just a repetitive thing to keep to just drop, to give it a bit more energy with your. So this is the way I construct a track. I always kind of make the kick, the bass, get a nice vibe going with the bass line and the kick, because that's the most important thing, and then work on the background, because the background, again, it's a different way of working, because most people would just go straight into this clap or a hi-hat or a snare drum or whatever, but I kind of like to get the atmosphere right at the back, because then it gives me space for it to grow. Anybody has any questions so far? Please just, yeah.
Hey, I just noticed that you put like a high pass filter on your master track, and I was just wondering like what cutoff you use that works, that doesn't suck out too much energy like on dance floor and stuff.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, I do. This is my master channel. Actually, this is generally what I use for most of my things. And I use just the simple auto filter here, and it's just like I have it on a when I'm working on. I have it like on a little alphabet so that I can put it on and off while I'm testing it. And it's interesting you say that because most tech house and techno build-ups and drops have always easiest worked when you just take out the low end for a little while and bring it back in. And so I generally, well, it depends on every track you do because it really depends on what your bass frequency is because it's important to get a little bit of the bass in with the low cut thing. It's you need to get a little. So you're getting a little bit of the bass still coming in, even though the main low end is completely gone. So I think it's very like subjective to what kind of track you're making, or generally it works between I've noticed like 170 to like 200. Again, but depends on how low your bass is or how high your bass is. For electro house and stuff, they have their bass tones are very high, so you could take this filter further in. But generally for stuff that you're using sub basses and things like 170, 180 to about 200 should work depending on what it is. But the thing is like what you need to remember is every time you do this, you put a low cut on. It's important to get a little bit of the cut because if you like it's too much now and it just sounds like it's sucked out everything. So you just like at the moment you're still getting a little bit of low end, you know a little bit of the low I feel is should always be present because otherwise your subs go totally quiet. And when the subs go totally quiet, again, like I'm just talking in terms of making music for the dance floor and playing it on a club sound system or a festival or whatever. Your subs go totally quiet. It actually is a huge chunk of the sound and the atmosphere that totally kills. So when the sub goes off, all you've got is your tops, and it becomes more shrieking, I feel. So it's always good to have some amount of subs a little bit in there. Like, it's fine to filter it out live if you're doing something and take out the subs completely and bring it back in. But if you're going to have a breakdown with absolutely no sub frequencies going on, to me, it often sounds like there's a lot of empty space. So I try and like kind of fill that space a little bit. I mean, I hope you get what I mean by that, yeah? Okay. All right, so I have a reverb here, which I just kind of do a wet and dry thing. I don't know if I've actually used it. Oh yeah, I have used it a bit. Okay, I'll show you that throughout the way. I have an auto filter that I use. I have the utility plugin on Ableton, which I think is like a lifesaver. It's the best. It's the best plugin that Ableton has because a lot of times you'll see that when you automate channels on Ableton, it becomes red and then you can't mix it. So a really cool trick is to drop a utility on it and use the gain on the utility as the channel that you automate. That's a really, really cool trick so that you have your actual faders here free to actually mix the track. So, of course, now with the new Ableton, you can bus, you can group tracks and stuff like that. You couldn't do this earlier. So this is what I used to do earlier. But now, obviously, if you've got like if I have like 4 tracks that I automate heavily, I just bust them into something, and then you have a channel open that you can actually mix with. But it is a really good idea to use those utility channels as something that you use for volume automation. Right. So I have a utility channel. I use this processor called the M Stereo processor. It's by Melda Productions. It's a really nice. It's more. I use it as an expander basically. It helps me to expand the frequency. So you can see here, it's from the top. It's got a gain, it's got a panorama, it's got a widener, and it's got an exciter. It's like the audio exciter or a BBE or one of those audio exciters. but it also has individual bass, low mid, high mid, and high exciters, wideners, and delay widening. Delay widening is just using some amount of delay algorithms to widen the sound, and rather than keeping it right there, it just spreads it out a little bit. It's really cool, and of course, it's got a little EQ as well under there if you want to boost a certain frequencies. It's got this oscilloscope kind of thing, which I think is very important for dance music because. Again, making dance music for venues and clubs and festivals. A lot of people don't might not have stereo systems in their clubs. A lot of clubs run mono systems. A lot of really crappy clubs. So your sound needs to sound really good in mono as well as stereo. So it's really important to see, what the relationship is like. I mean, I'm just gonna play this back so you can see. This. So this is like a mono sound of the stereo. Now this is just the stereo elements that are actually stereo. There's no mono in it, so obviously your kick, bass is all gone. And if you notice in the mono section, none of those background noises are there because they're all more stereo tracks. There's not much in the mono section. And so it's a good way to see what your stereo mono factor is. It's important in dance music to do it because, like I said, some clubs just have like really, really crappy systems. You need to have a strong mono element because, let's say, you only have one side of if they only have a left or a right, you want enough information there on the left and right to be able to play your track. Otherwise, imagine if all your stuff is like superly panned everywhere and you go to a club and it just doesn't have you don't have a right. The club is just wired that way that they only have a left. There's so much information that's on your track that you're going to like lose out on. So it's very important to make sure that a mono signal on a dance track is very important, and the mono signal more for the kick and the bass, because you don't want you don't want your bass spread out too wide and have a crappy sound system where it just sucks all your bass up and you're suddenly like, oh shit, my track's sounding really, really shitty. So it's just another tip. Another thing I use in my master is the L3 by Waves. This is more for me to make my own masters so I can play out. It's a limiter. I mean, I'm sure you all know the Waves limiter plugins. So this is something that I use just so that I get a strong, compressed kind of level signal so I can play the tracks out and test them at the club. And I mean, I honestly I love this plugin, but I haven't gone too much into it. There's this one high-res CD master. I love this setting, and you put the setting. It just the out ceiling I changed from -2 to 0, and that's it. It's good to go, and it's just good for you to test, obviously. But if you're doing any production, then you send them to a mastering engineer. You would not put these guys in there. But of course, you want to test your music out before you sign it or send it to a label and stuff like that. So so that's my master channel, and it's pretty much always like this. It's just simple. All right.
I'm looking at your channel strip, and it looks like you don't. Doesn't seem like you give yourself a lot of headroom for your kick and kind of your other elements. Is the mixing portion something you do like after like your song is complete, or do you?
I actually no. I mix while I'm producing. Actually,
Okay.
I come from that school of thought that being a producer and an engineer yourself, you just do it while you're working on the track. Because frankly, if you're working on a track, I mean, just a simple example, if you're working on a track and you have, right, this is something that I've mixed while working, but if you're just going to be working with you're going to be like, that sounds shit anyway, so I just feel it's this whole process of mixing while you're working is really good. Of course, spend like a little bit of time after you've made the whole track and get everything in level. And yes, you're right. I don't give too much headroom. And again, a way to compensate that is, again, through my master. If you look at my master and you look at the utility channel, it's at -6 here. That's me bringing the overall level down before it reaches the stereo master channel here on Ableton. I don't know if it's right to do this or wrong to do this, but it works, and I've been doing this for years. I just like my kick to be at 0 dB here, because I often make music on the road, and I'm often making music on my headphones. Um, I just know that if the kick is there, and I can visually or listening to it on my headphones adjust my bass level and stuff and take it up, it'll work. It'll be the right sound. And it's just something that I've always done ever since I've been producing. So yeah, I just like running it hot. Actually, strangely, there are times when I'll select this and select all the channels and pull them all down because everything is running a bit too much. I'll be doing like a minus like 15 or something on the master here, and I'll be like, okay, that's a bit crazy, and I'll take everything down. But yeah, in essence, I like to keep my kick at a 0 because I know this is the loudest piece in my track. Kick will always be the loudest sound, the loudest decibel level in the entire track. Because for dance music, that's what you need as your top factor. I've noticed that with a lot of producers that this is what they always do, and it's a good benchmark to set your whole project on. If you have your kick as the highest, at the highest level, everything comes below that. Your bass line will always come a couple of dBs below that. Just again, I don't know if that's the right way or the wrong way, but for me, I just do it by ear, whatever sounds good. And eventually, if you make a whole bunch of tracks and you think that, yeah, it works, then that's the way you should go. I don't feel like for making music, there need to be any like serious rules as far as mixing is concerned. You just learn tips and you learn things on the way, and you learn things from other people. You see how they work, and you just incorporate it into your own productions. Okay. Going into like a little more of the groove here, it's very simple actually. So a lot of these loops that we have here, I make these on the machiner. I think it's one of the most fun ways to make loops and program, beats, because it's really intuitive. It's you've got these pads, and you can literally just drop stuff and just assign them anywhere and then move them around and see what works. So a lot of times what I do is I don't integrate the machine directly into the software, in the sense I don't sequence with the machiner on. I always make the loops and I bounce them as audio. I'm pretty sure you all know how to do that, but I'll just gonna show you quickly the way I do it. Oh shit! Did I just open an audio channel? Okay, anyway, sorry. So I'm just gonna just randomly just drop a couple of things, and we'll just take it from there. So just to make like a simple um, something for the highs, basically. Okay, this is the new machine, and I use the old one, so I don't know how to add the swing to it. Yeah, the swing, and how do you then change the swing? Oh, right. Okay, cool. Okay, we've got some like random high stuff happening. Let's add some maybe toms to it. So basically, just I'm just doing something like totally random right now, just to show you. Like it's really cool where you can this is how I just make loops from the machiner. Yeah, you press this guy and you keep it pressed, and it bounces down to audio. Um, I just like this way of doing things because it just kind of it becomes easy for you to play in audio. I like working a lot with audio because you can do like so much. You can edit so much. Right. So basically, you hold this thing down here. Yeah. And it basically bounces it down to a loop, which you might need to edit a little bit. I mean, here you see the tempo is wrong. It's 160, and you just loop it in, and you know. Yeah, just doing stuff, just playing around with this. Actually, that's a great way to get inspiration. Like that's what I do with a lot of my music. A lot of times that I'm not making music, I'll just sit and just make a bunch of loops and just like I'll get a new sample pack with like maybe some 808 sounds, or get the machine inbuilt sample packs are so good. They've got great producers who've done samples for them. Just sit and play around and just make stuff, at the time when you don't feel like, oh, I don't feel like making a track, but you are inspired to just mess around, or you want to sit in the studio and just do some stuff, and don't necessarily want to sit and work on a track, so to speak. You just want to sit and do something. It's always good to make loops, and that's what I like to do. I just like to just like I'll just sit down and be like, okay, today let me see what I can do with a 909 snare, and just make snare rolls, different kind of rolls with different swings and stuff, and just bounce it and just keep it with me in my like library, and have my own little sample collection, which I might use for something else. Or while making a track, I'll be like, okay, let me just try and work with a particular kind of sound. So it's a lot of stuff about being a bit random and making it a bit fun for yourself, rather than being like, okay, I need to make a shaker part for this, so get a shaker and make it. Like, okay, that's cool to do, but it's also cool to just take like four different shaker sounds and put them on these pads and just like jam with them and see what comes about. It's about having fun as well while making music. So yeah, so getting out of this is how I made most of my loops in this section called loopy, which is just, and I just make the loops, and I might add right. Okay, so over here, if you see, I've EQ'd it quite a bit. I've added a transient designer by SPL. This is really cool because what it does, it takes the transients out from. So this is what it is without, sorry, and with. So you can kill the attack time of the transient. So it basically kills the transient. It takes it away, or you can boost it as well. You know, and you can increase the sustain of the sound, or keep it really tight. Like it's like an ADSR kind of thing, basically, that you can work on audio, kind of like an ADSR. Yeah, well, it's got a sustain, so. And you can even like automate this stuff in a track, you know. Again, I remember doing this loop in a hotel room somewhere, just messing around. And again, again, the good thing about having audio is you can play around with it and just change stuff around. Like, oh, so I just love playing with audio. I think that's when I started producing in the very beginning. I had an analog keyboard and well, not analog actually. It was a JP 8000. It was probably a digital keyboard by Roland, but it was really cool. And the MIDI ports behind the keyboard were messed up, and so all I could do was I could play, and I don't know how to play. I'm really horrible at it, and I could only play and record that stuff into my computer. So I used to only have audio. I couldn't like MIDI sync anything. I had to manually play whatever I wanted from it, and that's how I kind of learned how to use a synthesizer. So ever since then, I just love playing with audio as such. It's the coolest thing to do. There's so many things you can do. You can reverse stuff. You can like double things. Just mess around with it. And Ableton's got the really cool join function. You hold something down and press Apple J, and it just consolidates everything into a loop. Of whatever you do. So you can do whatever you want here, and mess around and make as many parts of it as you want, and just press Apple J and consolidate into a loop, and then it's a clean thing. You don't have any of these automation lines in your for your volume automation and whatnot. And you can do that. You can like obviously you can transpose stuff, and you got a whole bunch of things that you can do with it. So it's great fun playing with audio. I think I've changed. I did, yeah. Okay, let's get this back here. All right. Any more questions? Please. Yeah, go for it.
Hi. First of all, I don't go to Pyramid, so this is like a huge opportunity for me.
Cool.
So thank you.
You should come here if you want.
I know. I should. So I don't know if you're gonna go to this afterwards, but could you just talk us through how to get your bass and your kick sounding really tight together, also not sounding like one is stealing energy from the other?
Right. Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. I should have done that, but I'm sorry I didn't. Like I said, it's the most important thing for dance music is to get your bass and your thing right. So in this particular track, this is like recorded from a Moog. Just play the kick. Now, if you see in this EQ, you can see the frequencies that the kick peaks in, and for this I boosted it a little bit more because I wanted to get a little more punch out of it. I also have a compressor on it. This is a really cool compressor. It's DB Audio. It's a really old company, but I've been using it for years, and I just love the way it works on drums. So I use it quite a lot. In this track, all I did was actually, there you go. Instead of sidechaining it, actually, what I did was I manually sidechained it. Yes, that's what I did. That's why it sounds so good. I basically cut the peaks off by just, taking the volume down. So you can hear the sidechain kind of thing, but I didn't do a sidechain. I don't know why. Yeah, well, maybe I just didn't. Okay, for some reason I didn't do a sidechain, but you can see the peaks have been cut, and therefore the kick gets enough room. Also, what I did was I EQ'd what I thought was like the fundamental frequency of the kick. So this is about, what is this? This is 54 that I've boosted it at. And I've cut it at Yeah, close enough, 58. So I've given the kick enough room to kind of punch out, and it's also the kind of sound that you use is important depending on the kind of kick you use. If you use a very subby kick, then obviously you shouldn't use too much of a subby bass sound, and vice versa. And this kick is not a very subby kick. It's got a lot of subs in there, but it's also very sharp. You see, it's got a lot of frequencies going on over here, which which is why actually I boosted it. And when you listen to it like this, it actually might feel that the kick is way too loud compared to the bass. But the bass does have quite a bit of subs, which I'm actually not hearing right now. But if you actually listen to it, if you just listen to a sub frequency of the bass line, you'll probably hear that there is a lot of low end coming out from this bass.
I've heard this track way too many times, so
Yep.
I can tell you.
Cool. So, and which is why I actually added this extra. This extra thing, because I felt that the low was very low. The bass line had the bass sound was had this more subby kind of characteristic to it, which is why I added this extra bass. So yeah, is there anything that you didn't kind of get?
Yeah, that seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it is pretty. It's sometimes the simplest option is the best option. Like people get like too complicated about certain things and being like, oh, you need to do this and that, and whatever, man, whatever sounds good. End of the day, like it needs to sound good to the ear. If it sounds good to your ear, it's probably right. You don't have to like get too technical about things.
Okay, no, that seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? I should have maybe sidechained it, but I didn't, probably for a reason, because probably I wasn't getting the sidechain the way I wanted it to sound. So all I did was like, okay, forget the sidechain. I'll just manually just kill the transients of the loop, of the bass loop that I made. Just so that I get the kick coming in here and just hitting it. At the same time, if you see here, it's bringing up, it's killing the first thing. And I remember when I was actually recorded this off the Moog. Uh, I couldn't like analog synths sometimes have a mind of their own. So this guy just the decay just wouldn't go down and stay down. It kept rising up every couple of bars or whatever. So that's why I just recorded a pretty long loop, and I cut it and pasted them together, and then just Apple Jade them for Ableton, and just concised it into one little loop, and then realized I needed to kill some of the transients because they were just messing with the kick. So, yeah. Right. So where I was at the loop bit. Right. So basically, by this time, you've got your back, you've got your bass, you've got your clap, and you've got some. Again, all these drum loops and these little percussion bits and whatever were all. Okay, this was just a loop from one of the Ryman Collective, Florent Mindel's things. Yeah. So it's a lot of things of just putting things together and playing around with them and how you want to do them, and messing around and changing volumes and just basically trying to have fun. I mean, dance music is not about being too serious, and especially if you're making like a very jacking kind of club track, it needs to be moving, and it needs to have a very, very strong groove. And so, yeah, I think this pretty much had it. So, the vocal. So the vocal, again, I've taken just this very little bit of it. I think the original sample sounded like it had a. And it's reversed. That's why it sounds like this. And what I added to this was, just to give it a little bit of complexity and movement, was this plugin called Effectrix, which I don't know if a lot of you know, but it's one of my favorite plugins. It's mad. You can do so much crazy shit with this. So basically, um, this plugin's got like a whole bunch of stuff. It's got this really cool loop thing, which I use quite a lot actually, where you can change the pitch. You know, I'll just shorten this loop so that you can hear it. Yeah, so basically, what this plugin does is it's kind of like it's like this multi effects kind of crazy, just mad little VST where you can loop and you can reverse and you can add like some delays and like it's got its filters and like a little reverbs to it, which and it's all really dirty and it's really it really dirties the sound up. Like maybe I'll just open this up and you can just hear the what a full sample might sound like on something like So basically, I mean, you get the idea. You can just like mess around with this like for it's hours and hours and hours of fun. Okay, I think I totally messed up my project with that. I'm just gonna restart it.